So it is primary election night here in Nevada. Thanks for joining us. I'm Denise Valdez.
And I'm Brian Loftus. We've got many of the key races covered tonight, from Clark County Sheriff to Congress.
But let's start with Nevada's open governor seat. The Democratic side was much more competitive than the Republicans. As we take a look at the numbers here, it came down to County Commissioner Steve Sisolak and Chris Giunciliani, but it was Sisolak with 50% of the vote who came out on top. Meantime, on the Republican side, as we take a look here, Adam Laxalt walking away with this one with 72% of the vote. And here's what both Laxalt and Sisolak had to say about tonight's results. Patrick?
Yeah, Denise and Brian, good evening here from the Aria. Steve Sisolak just hitting the stage shortly after 10 o'clock this evening after what had been, in his words, a very long campaign and a long evening so far. Cautious and guarded optimism from the folks, his supporters here, turning really into excitement as the numbers first trickled and then kept rolling in. The first thing that Steve Sisolak mentioned was speaking with Mark Davis and that they had left it all out on the field. He then mentioned speaking with Chris Giunciliani and saying that they were going to work together against Adam Laxalt, of course, the nominee on the Republican side. Now, I had a chance to ask Sisolak about it being a very expensive race and depleted resources going forward and what that might look like in the coming days and weeks. Here's what he had to say. How does the effort change now? I'm sure some coalescing with Chris G to move forward against Adam Laxalt. He didn't face too much of a primary, so to speak, so his war chest is there. You've shown the ability, obviously, to raise money, so I'm sure it goes back to that and really pushing forward from here.
I'm confident that we're going to be able to raise the resources. Like I said, my phone's been ringing off the hook since for the last hour and a half, 2 hours. I've got a lot of really great supporters and donors that feel the same way I do, that Adam Laxalt can't be the next governor, and we're going to all pull together and work together. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, and I'm up for the challenge, and I'm confident that everybody working together, we can get this done.
All right, so Sisolak really played hard to the base tonight, talking about raising teacher salaries, protecting health care, and going against Donald Trump, something we've heard from Democrats up and down the ticket. Looking ahead, Steve says that there is a lot of work to be done, but for now, he's looking forward to a good night's rest tonight, but no rest for the weary. Everything happens again tomorrow, as this has been a very expensive race, and there's no indication that's going to change anytime soon. For now, reporting live at the Aria at Sisolak campaign headquarters, I'm Patrick Walker, 8 News Now.
Thanks much, Patrick. As we mentioned, the Democratic side of the governor race was a battle between progressives, but Chris Giunciliani fell short in her bid against Steve Sisolak. And 8 News Now reporter Shakayla Alvarenga heard from the county commissioner at her downtown watch party.
Well, in her concession speech tonight, Chris Giunciliani said the fight isn't over yet. She held her primary night watch party at the Bunkhouse Saloon in downtown Las Vegas. There were many people here to show their support for her. This is what she had to say about tonight's results.
This campaign has been about all of you, never about me. And it's always been about making sure that we expressed and showed the diversity of this state. And that's who you all are, and I'm not going away, okay?
It has been a heated race between Steve Sisolak and Giunciliani. The big debate, who is the true progressive? She said there is still a lot of work that needs to be done, and she's going to make sure that Sisolak is voted in come November. She said Adam Laxalt does not deserve to be the next governor of Nevada. Shakayla Alvarenga, 8 News Now.
All right, Shakayla, thanks for that. On the Republican side, Nevada's Attorney General will be the one racing against Sisolak. Adam Laxalt won by a landslide, and here's what he had to say about the win tonight.
We look forward to being able to contrast our message. We want to save Nevada. They want to take Nevada in an incredibly liberal direction and turn us into California, and I don't think voters in Nevada are going to go for that.
So our political analyst, Steve Sebelius, joining us now. And Steve, this gubernatorial race and these numbers, any big surprises or takeaways for you?
No, I think it's interesting. There's a story behind the numbers. You mentioned Steve Sisolak, 50%, Chris Giunciliani, about 39%. But the other numbers are the numbers in their campaign treasuries, which are now right around zero because they spent almost all their money to go after each other. Now look at Adam Laxalt. He had two major Republican opponents. He got 72% of the vote. That's a huge percentage of his base that he was able to turn out and get on Election Day. He starts with that. Steve Sisolak, 50%. Chris G held him to that level. So now he's got a lot of making up to do. He's got to reach out to her supporters, and it was an incredibly bitter primary. And so they're going to have to come together, and we may see a little of what we saw in the 2016 presidential race, where Bernie Sanders supporters didn't come over to Hillary Clinton, even though Bernie himself did and nominated her at the convention.
He's saying his phone's already ringing, so let's see how he does with fundraising.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he can raise money. He's shown that in the past before, too.
Sounded a little hoarse, so he's answering those phone calls.
Yeah, I think he's going to be answering every single one of them.
Boy, a lot of landslides tonight.
There's a lot of landslides, but there's one race that I'm watching that is still
too close to call.
Too close to call. There are still votes coming in. It's the Clark County Commission District E race. That's between Tick Segerblum, we see it there on your screen, and Marco Hernandez, 51 to 49. Only about less than 200 votes separate these two candidates. Now, when Tick Segerblum announced his candidacy for the Clark County Commission, everyone assumed he would have one of the landslide victories that we saw earlier tonight. But look at how close that race is because of the Las Vegas Raiders Stadium. Tick Segerblum voted against it. Marco Hernandez was put up by the laborers who are building it, and that rift really, one of the liberal lions of the Nevada legislature is very close to not winning that county commission seat. We'll see when those numbers are finally in what happens. But in any case, this was not a runaway victory by any chance.
One of his tightest races ever, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have not done the research, but I would say you're right, Denise. This is probably the tightest race he's probably ever been in.
All right, let's take a look at some other big races tonight, Steve. The seat for Clark County Sheriff. We are talking about current Sheriff Joe Lombardo running against a few other candidates, but he did win by a wide margin, a slam dunk for him. Anchor Christiane Klein caught up with him earlier tonight.
We are here at Sheriff Joe Lombardo's election night party, which has turned into a victory party. He has won in a landslide. He will not face a challenger upcoming in November for that election. And I asked Sheriff Joe Lombardo a few moments ago what he wants to focus on for this upcoming term.
You know, there's been three things I've talked about in my platform. One is to continue to look for funding for more cops. One is expansion of the funding mechanisms associated with the jail and how we deal with the mentally ill. You know, the homeless problem is not a secret here in the Valley, and a good portion, a majority of them are affected by mental illness. And how do I deal with that as a police department, and how does my officers on the street, the first responders, deal with that? They got to have the resources to be successful in lieu of incarceration.
As you heard from the sheriff, he does not want his tenure to just be about 1 October. There's a lot more that he wants to focus on for our city. And he said for those of the people that might be looking outside, who might be wondering whether or not Vegas is a safe place to live after 1 October, he says absolutely it is. There's a reason why we are the #1 tourist destination in the world. Reporting in downtown Las Vegas, so Christiane Klein, 8 News Now.
All right, so let's turn our attention now to the district attorney race. This one a pretty good night for our current DA, Steve Woolson, with 56% of the vote versus his opponent there, Robert Langford, at 44%. Well, the fight for a spot in the congressional district was a pretty crowded one, at least for District 3. That seat was vacated by Jackie Rosen when she chose to challenge Senator Dean Heller in the Senate.
And Republican Danny Tarkanian came out on top for the GOP. Darlene Melendez heard from him tonight.
Well, the room erupted in cheers this evening when the results came in, announcing Danny Tarkanian as the winner of tonight's Republican primary in Nevada's 3rd Congressional District. Tarkanian says he's happy about tonight's victory, but says it's now time for him and his supporters to get their message out for the next few months leading into the general election. He attributed a lot of tonight's success to his volunteers. Mr. Tarkanian was endorsed by President Trump earlier this year. He says they share the same America First message. Tarkanian says he looks forward to running against Democratic candidate Susie Lee and also looks forward to finding out what the people of District 3 truly believe in.
I just look forward to running against her and talking about the issues and seeing what the voters of CD3 really believe in. Do you believe in open borders, or do you believe we should have secure borders like I believe in? Do you believe in sanctuary cities, or do you believe that we should not have sanctuary cities like I believe in? We talked about the issues. I'm very confident we're going to be successful in the election.
Danny Tarkanian's father was a prominent figure in Las Vegas. Danny says that he wishes his father was here to witness tonight's Republican primary victory. And Tarkanian says now it's time to make sure that voters know just exactly what his message is, and he's going to focus on that on the months leading into the general election. Darlene Melendez, 8 News Now.
All right, thank you, Darlene. Tarkanian's Democratic opponent, Susie Lee, she won by a margin of almost 15,000 votes. Here she is after talking with her supporters at a watch party tonight.
We've been at this since September, almost 9 months, really working hard to build our grassroots coalition, get out our message to the voters of Congressional District 3. So this is a relief, but it's just one step on the way to November.
All right, so let's check some of the numbers here as we take a look at the U.S. Senate race. We mentioned Jackie Rosen earlier, vacating her seat to run here. The whopping result for her, 77% of the vote. Again, now she will move on to the general and, of course, face our current U.S. Senator Dean Heller, who also handedly won his office tonight with 70% of the vote.
From our special election newscast from 9 to 10 p.m. tonight to right now with your recap at 11, 8 News Now is your local election headquarters. You can find more information on all the key races and updates and finishes at LasVegasNow.com.